Ina mana, ina reo, e ro rangatira tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to the Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee meeting. I am Fiona McTavish and I am the champion for this committee. Can I remind members and staff that this meeting is being recorded and that the recording will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in court and determined to be slanderous. Can I ask John O'Gracie to come to the table to give us our karakia?
Mōrena tātou. Tak te hau ki te uru, tak te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kene, kia ki tātanga, kia mā taratara ki tāna. E heke ana, te atakura, te hiu, te huka, te hauhu, ti hei, Mōriora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land. Let the red-tipped dawn come close, with sharpened air, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day.
Thank you, Jono. Johnny's been with us 4 weeks as our new risk and engagement manager. Put on the spot. On the screen there is housekeeping for your information and attention. The other thing I would draw your attention to is if the blue lights flash in this room, could you please stay in this room or we will allow you to come out through this door. That means that we've got a lockdown at our reception area. Thank you all for attending today. It's so wonderful to see you all. We do have 2 apologies, and that is Deputy Mayor Julie Jukes from Whakatane District Council and Deputy Mayor Sandra Kaifong from Rotorua Lakes Council. Are there any further apologies? There being none, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the apologies, please? Thank you, Your Worships. A move by Mayor Drysdale and seconded by Mayor Denia. I'd also like to note that Lily Folds is on Zoom from NEMA and she cannot be in the chambers today. In terms of your order of business, the first order of business is item 8.1, confirmation of the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee for 2025 to 2028 training. Once the new chair has been appointed, the new appointee will assume the chair and facilitate the election of a deputy chair and finalise the remainder of item 8.1, whereafter matters on the agenda will continue as reflected. So can I turn your attention to 8.1 on page 20, and in particular, the Civil Defence Constitution, July 2013 on page 28, and also the Bay of Plenty Regional Council Standing Orders 25 to 28 on page 42. And I also draw you to attention that each member council has 1 vote. So in regards to 8.1, that the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee receives the report confirmation of the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee for 25-28 training. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. So it's moved by Mayor Tanui and seconded by Mayor Tapsell. All those in favour? Carried. And I have a mover and a seconder for recommendation 2, which is the membership of this committee for this training. Thank you, Your Worships. Moved by Mayor Denia and seconded by Mayor Tenchos. All those in favour? Aye. Motion is carried. Recommendation 3. This confirms your voting system to elect a chairperson and a deputy chairperson. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by Mayor Tapsell and seconded by Mayor Tenchos. All those in favour? Carried. And I now call for nominations for the position of chairperson for the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee. I call for a mover and a seconder to elect a mayor.
I nominate Matt Tunui.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. That is, Mia Tanui has been nominated by Mia Dinia and Mia Tapsell as the chairperson of the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee for the 25 to 28 local authority training. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you and congratulations, Your Worship. And would you please take the role as chair? Kia ora tātou. Welcome, we're full house this morning, so thank you for your support as we enter our 2025-2028 triennium. It's one of those strange things where you hope that it's not needed, but if it is, that we've prepared ourselves as best we can to look after the sons and daughters of the rohi of Tuimuana of the Bay of Plenty. And thank you, C.E. McTavish, the chair of our coordinating executive group, or the KEG, as we refer to it, for chairing a former part of our meeting. Thank you, team. On page 21, can I invite, please, nominations for the position of the new Deputy Chairperson for the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee for 2028 Local Authority Training. Memo. Memo, I have a nomination for Mia Dinia. I have a seconder in Mia Tapsell. There are no other nominations. Happy to receive the nomination. All those in favour, please signal aye. And just for the benefit of the recording, if we can just physically signal aye, please. We're all very fortunate to be in here. We'll see it and hear it. But for those who join us online, that would be appreciated. Those against, there are none. The item is carried, and congratulations, Mia Dinia. Thank you as the Deputy Chairperson for our Civil Defence Emergency Management, it's a mouthful, Joint Committee for this current triennium. Congratulations. It is recommended that the CDM Group adopt the unchanged Bay of Plenty Regional Council Tuimuana standing orders for the 2025-28 triennium as attached to this report, attachment 2, page 42 for the interim period. Can I invite, please, a mover and a seconder that the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee confirms the standing orders to be used for the conduct of meetings to be those of the administrating authority, Bay of Plenty Regional Council Tuimuana, and adopts as its standing orders the document attached as attachment 2 until such time that the Department of Internal Affairs model standing orders have been finalised as adopted by the administrating authority on the 18th of November 2025 pursuant to clause 27, 1 and 2, Schedule 7 of the Local Government Act 2002 and Section 19, Part 1 of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act 2002. Can I invite a mover, please? I have a mover in Mia Tapsell and a seconder in Mia Drysdale. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Those against? There are none. The item is carried. That is a mouthful for us to get started for this triennium, team. Very good. We remain on page 21. Recommendation 7 acknowledges that the Department of Internal Affairs model standing orders, as we're all well aware, will be updated and confirms that the adoption of the model standing orders will be considered once available in alignment with the administering authority. Can I invite a mover, please? The mover in Mia Denia, seconder in Mia Moore. All those in favour, please signal aye. We'll take an aye, Mia Drysdale, if you're happy with that. Thank you, Sue. Those against, there are none. The item is carried. And we are finally at recommendation 8, which confirms the following 2026 meeting dates. We have 4, we're meeting quarterly: Friday the 27th of March, Friday the 3rd of July, Friday the 25th of September, and Friday the 11th of December. Do I have a mover? I have a mover in Deputy Chair Dougal and a seconder in Mayor Drysdale. All those in favour, please signal aye. Those, there are none against, the item is carried. We are on public forum, which is agenda item number 2, and we have no request for public forum this morning. We do sincerely open that invitation and invite members of our Bay of Plenty Rohe to come and meet with us. Agenda item 3 is items not on the agenda. Very pleased to say there are none, so we will continue with our agenda as received. Agenda item 4, order of business. Remaining agenda items will proceed in the order shown on the agenda. We're not going to make it tricky this morning, team. We will proceed as follows. Agenda item 5, can I invite, please, from both voting members and from our alternate members, warm welcome to participate fully just for the voting process. If that can just be for members only, that would be appreciated. And invite any declarations of conflict of interest with regards to our agenda this morning. If there are none, moving to agenda item 6, which is public excluded business to be transferred into the open, and we have none this morning. Moving on, please, to agenda item 7, which is the minutes returning. Forgive me. So agenda item 7.1, which is the Bay of Plenty Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Committee minutes from back on the 26th of September 2025. That was a whole local body election ago, team. And that really is an information receiving procedure only. If I can have a mover for receipt of the minutes, I have a mover in Deputy Chair Dougal and a seconder. I have a seconder in Mia Moore. All those in favour, please signal aye. Those against, there are none. The item is carried. Forgive me, team, we're just checking in. Read agenda item 8, which is reports 8.2, page 118 of our agenda. The Joint Committee roles, responsibilities, delegations, and CDM system overview. We will be joined at the table by James Jefferson. Wonderful to have you with us, James. Our Principal Advisor from Emergency Management. James, we are in your hands. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, your worships and councillors. Every council is different. Sometimes Red, let's go, sometimes Greg. Good morning, everyone. James Jefferson, Principal Advisor here at the MBOP office, and I'll take the paper as read. These are all the documents that form your the legal policy and procedural frameworks for the operation of not only this committee but also the group as a whole. And there's a lot in there, and really between Mike and I, we will take any questions you have, and that if we can't answer them, we'll come back to you with some answers after the meeting.
Thank you, Principal Advisor Jefferson. Committee members, we're in your hands. Any points of clarification or questions are warmly welcome. We might just invite, please, Director Crow, and then I'll come back to you, Mayor Panzas.
Morena tātou. I just wanted to clarify somewhat casually around the intent of the paper. It's to provide a sort of single source of truth for future reference. So if you're wondering at any point how a relationship between a particular committee or delivery has worked through, you should be able to come back to this to get an over understanding of the overarching architecture of what we do. So it's not intended to be fulsome in its interrogation of all the elements, but it just gives you that point of reference to draw back to as to structures. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Crowe. Mayor Tansos.
Thank you. That's quite helpful clarification. And it may be this is a question for another meeting as we get into some of the detail. I was just interested in there's some information here about the role in terms of community resilience, in terms of climate change, mitigation, community building, things like this. And perhaps, as I say, perhaps it's for another time, but I'd be interested at some stage in understanding what the role is in relation to those things. I look, for me, thank you through the chair. For me, this is the $6 million question, probably a whole lot more, but the real opportunity for both regional and local councils to be working in this space. I think this is where the goal is in the reduction space. In fact, we presented the councillors' induction on Monday. Had a wonderful day with some of you and your colleagues, but we presented there a 10-to-1 return on investment. And no doubt, and I've got 20 years in local government, I've sat around the table and realised some of the pressures councils are under in terms of, where they spend their money and those pressures. But it is really one of the key roles, I think, as we start to unpack the new bill, that role is being magnified, that reduction and risk mitigation. It seems to me in some ways that we're receiving a bit of contradictory advice from governors, local body, elected members in terms of these are the things we're being steered on. Well, community resilience is something we're being steered away from, and at the same time we have these obligations. So I guess it is an ongoing discussion for us.
Thank you, Mayor Tansos. And what also sits in my mind is the limitations or restrictions that are signalled with regards to rates capping. When we're hearing some very big asks for those who were fortunate enough to be at the elected member induction at the Orchard in Te Puke earlier in the week, that there is a real need for readiness. However, when we have those restrictions placed on all councils for all of the services that we are charged and blessed to be delivering, it would be helpful if those who sit, perhaps the ministers of local government and civil defence and climate change, could all get together to have a shared conversation. That would be helpful. Thank you, Mayor Tansos. Elected members, committee members, any other questions? If there are none, I'd like to invite, please, the recommendation on page 118 to receive the report, Joint Committee roles, responsibilities, delegations and CDM system overview. Thank you, Principal Advisor Jefferson. Can I invite a mover, please? I have a mover and Deputy Chair Dougal and a seconder in Mayor Denia. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Those against? There are none. The item is carried. We are on page 131 of our agenda, agenda item 8.3, which is the Bay of Plenty CDM Group statutory appointments. Director Crowe, we're in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This paper I'll take as read and is somewhat procedural in nature in the appointment of local and group controllers and local and group recovery managers. You'll see these papers quite frequently as you work through the triennium as staff changes occur within the councils. And the recommendations here today address the current gaps across council in terms of appointments for new positioning. They require, under statute, joint committee approval to pick up the statutory powers within the Act, and hence the paper comes before you today.
Medina.
Move the recommendations, Madam Chair.
I have a mover for all 11 recommendations from Mayor Law. They are a mix of both appointments and rescindments. And I have a seconder in Mayor Kansosh for all 11 recommendations. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Those against, the item is carried. Thank you for the preparation of the report. Very important when needed, should they be needed. Thank you, Director Crow. We're on page 139 of our agenda item 8.4, which is the Bay of Plenty Sedum Group Office Annual Plan Performance Monitoring Quarterly for the first quarter, report 2025 and 26. Good morning. We're joined at the table by our Manager of Planning, Paul Greenshields. Welcome in, Paul. We're in your hands. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair, worships. The paper here is our, as said, the quarter one snapshot of our annual plan and the performance against our activities. These activities are the governance approved ones, what we refer to activity A in our priorities. These are our top priorities, and the performance is strong this quarter, with no governance activities in risk. We have started 11 of the 15 priority A, and look into the forecast. There's no risk of any of these becoming out of the budget, missing budget or anything like that. But take any questions.
Committee members, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Just from my understanding, being new to this reporting framework, so if there's a activity that's not started, that's still within the expected schedule. It's not scheduled to start yet, as opposed to having missed a start.
Yes, so these are activities that will go across the whole financial year, and some of these will be started within the next few months. So this is the quarter just been.
Supplementary for me.
Absolutely, Mayor Councillor. Gives me practice. Thank you.
I'm interested in activity description 1, the development of initial group iwi engagement framework. Could you describe when that is expected to start and how that will step out?
So this is expected to start, I believe it has already started. So when that started was collated, it hadn't in the first quarter. We're into looking into that now, but it's around currently building relationships with iwi partners across the rohe, and once we understand that, then we can pull the framework together.
Mayor Councillor, we're back with you. Thank you.
Do you engage with local councils in that work? Because obviously we have relationships, and so just understanding kind of how you manage that in terms of building and leveraging the relationships that councils already have.
That is one of our strong relationships that we leverage, definitely through our council relationships that we do have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Crow. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And perhaps further response to your question, but seeing, we have an iwi engagement framework, and a lot of the delivery and engagement with iwi should be done at local level. That's where it's most relevant, and the relationships potentially within your council better than we do. So that's where it should occur. This is probably more of a strategic oversight. And if we look at this one and go, hey Mark, why are we starting this one so late in the year? It's a fair question. And part of that for us has been around the potential changes in the bill, which has only landed this week, and how iwi Māori are to be engaged in the seeding framework going forward. and we've got better visibility of that now than we did have a month ago. So I'd expect this to start to progress a bit as we can look at how those changes will need to be embedded in our structures. Hopefully that's I help you, Bishop.
Thank you, Director Crowe. Also mindful that the retrospective nature of our reporting is this is a July to September report, of course leading into the local body election time of October, and we sit here in December. There may be some work done. Perhaps if I can just pick up on Mea Tanzosh. And what we're signalling is that while there's an operational sense of the SEDM Kaimahi staff, there is an opportunity to include our elected members, should there be iwi engagement, because that level of connection and hononga is across a range of different things. And I do note that more recently Mea Tanzosh did have a arrangement with Ngāti Manawa, perhaps, and we could leverage off those connections as well to strengthen, not instead of, but as well as. Should that be needed, as was demonstrated, and I just want to acknowledge Ono Tau Ki Muri, our 6 years ago event in Whakatare at Whakaari, that those lines of engagement, they don't get blurred, they go directly rangatira to rangatira, and that can be really helpful. Perhaps that's what we're inviting Mea Tanzosh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If there's nothing further from committee members and alternates, please warmly dive in. Most welcome to join in. We do have a recommendation on page 139 to receive the report Bay Plenty SEDM Group Office Annual Plan Performance Monitoring Quarterly, Q1 again for July to September for 2025-26. Can I invite a mover, please, to receive? I have a mover in Mayor Denyer and a seconder in Mayor Drysdale. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Those against, there are none. The item is carried. We are at page 145 of our agenda. Agenda item 8.5, Bay Plenty SEDM Group Training KPI Measurement. I'm not looking at the operations of MBOB Manager Stace Tahiri. Welcome to the table, Paul Borton.
Thank you, Chair.
We're in your hands. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present the paper on the training KPI. This is a standing item where we provide a report on how each of the organisations is tracking against the KPIs for training for council staff. One thing I will point out is that for this paper there is an amendment that does need to be made for the final page. Unfortunately, we only included the training that has been delivered since KEG, so in the last month. So in the minutes we will be providing a full breakdown of all training and exercising that has taken place since the last joint committee meeting, which includes 7 regional training events, 6 in-house training activities for the group office, and 10 exercise activities. Apart from those items which will be included in the minutes and included in the papers going forward, we'll take the paper as read, but happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Paul. Committee members, we're in your hands, please. A number of graphs in this particular agenda item. All points of clarification. If there are none, we do have a recommendation, please, to receive the report Bay Plenty SEDM Group Training KPI Measurement. Do I have a mover? I have a mover and Deputy Mayor Dougal and a seconder in Mayor Tapsell. All those in favour, please signal aye. Those against, there are none. The item is carried. Thank you, Paul Borton, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Worships.
As was shared earlier in the meeting, we are joined this morning by Lily Folds, our Regional Emergency Management Advisor from NEMA, or the National Emergency Management Agency. Lily, so wonderful to have you join us, albeit a wider on our Zoom link. We're in your hands, Lily. It's great to see you. You will see we have a post
local body election, as is often the nature, we do have a range of new committee members, but we warmly welcome you in, and we're in your hands. Thank you.
Kia ora mai tātou katoa. What a blessing the hui topa is. Apologies for not being there in person. I would be if I could. And e mihi atu ki ngā mema hou o tira ki ngā mema kua tai mai hoki. NEMA, or the National Emergency Management Agency, provides a written update to these committee hui. They are largely taken as read, and as was alluded to throughout this hui, an update to the Emergency Management Bill since this report was written is now here. Great news. So the Emergency Management Bill is with Parliament. It is with Select Committee, and the Select Committee determines a timeline for when public submissions can be made. The key point I will make here is we are very keen to hear your views, and you're very important whakaaro about this really incredibly important bill. Great news is this bill has received bipartisan support, but most importantly, really your views. As a public servant, I can't provide comment about the bill while it's going through this parliamentary process, but if you do have views or comments about it, I'm happy to take those views in this whakaaro, in this hui now. For the benefit of new members, the Emergency Management Bill also, as part of the wider reform, includes a roadmap, which is included in the update. This is a strategic plan over the next 5 to 10 years. It talks about how the emergency management system and the plans will be implemented. You'll find that in the written update. And finally, as part of this wider reform process, we have in the written report an emergency management sector operational system. So while the roadmap talks about the implementation, MSOFS talks about the technology that will be involved as part of this process. This is what is included in the update, and I'm happy to take any pārtai or whakaaro about that now. Kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Lily. Mayor Denia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed there's a few bullet points on the update for the bill, but I am conscious it came out the same day as the Resource Management Bill. I hope that wasn't deliberate, but anyway, it was, and I think it's probably fair to say that elected members' focus has probably been on that one. So I just wonder if you'd be able to just flesh out your bullet points a wee bit and just give us a 5-minute overview on what's actually in the bill and what it means for us.
Yep. So what I can say about the bill is, at a high level, it does follow the principles from that was introduced in 2002. The House agreed that we as a society haven't managed to implement what was intended at that time. So really what this emergency management bill intends to do is to really clarify and strengthen the emergency management system, really with the learnings that we have found and events that have happened since then, namely the North Island severe weather events, which is the reason why the previous bill was reviewed and is now introduced to the House. And the key points of this bill is to really strengthen how iwi are reflected in the emergency management system, provide for clearer response at national, regional, and levels, really sets to see a higher minimum standard of emergency management system sector. It talks a bit more about how essential services will be reflected in the bill. And ultimately what the bill intends to do is to identify the tools that all of our kaimahi, all of the people, all of our communities have when the emergency happens. An example of how iwi would be strengthened in this bill is to require committees to appoint someone with knowledge about Māori on the coordinating executive group. That's the KEG. It would also require the committee to appoint someone that has knowledge about rural sectors to better reflect communities there. It talks a bit more about mechanisms to set standards and enforce compliance. Places more emphasis on individual councils in their own regions and districts. Want to acknowledge the comments that are made prior to this about the very busy roles that local councils already have. And what I would really encourage you through this process is to put your whakaaro through the public submissions once they are made available. I hope that answers your point there, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. And perhaps this one's for Director Crowe, is that I believe, like I could be mistaken on this one, Mayor Failings, you may want to correct me, but didn't our submission caution against appointing, say, rural communities and so on to the KEG? I think we had some concerns about widely the membership of the KEG. Was that the case, Mark?
Director Crowe, and I believe James Jefferson was also well included in the preparation. If you could join us, please, James. You're just nice and ready and more familiar with that specific preparation of that submission. Thank you. Director Crowe, will go to you and happy for you to hand off. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and we have, and at your request, actually previously sought clarification on the submissions we put forward, the points within them and the influence they've had over the bill. And some of those themes, combined with all the other feedback that no doubt was received, we haven't seen come through, to be fair. And I think on reflection, this is probably part of that. Another one I'd draw to our attention, because we will need to address it later, will be around the arrangements for the offshore island. So we had some fairly specific feedback to that item, which doesn't appear to have been picked up either in terms of what's come through in this proposed bill. James, any further comment?
No, thank you through the chair. Look, we did caution about expanding either the membership of this group or KEG, and who you exclude by the inclusion of others, especially when there are arrangements. We have I understand, a very effective primary sector liaison group that seems to function particularly well in recovery, so that there are existing mechanisms, and we may choose to, if we get the opportunity to submit, I would assume that we will, but that is a decision for the select committee. But we may shape up something and put that in front of you and make sure you have your input into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Denia. So, Advisor Falls, just for clarity, there was a submission that was made. Thank you, James. I believe you were catching up us at the time in one of our conversations. I remember the strangest things, but we did have a submission, as Mayor Denia shared, our caution around widening that group and some of the impracticalities of having that occur, which haven't come through the bill. I just want to make that observation as we're being invited to potentially put forward another submission. Makes it tricky. We receive this every day in local government with disappointment of not having views reflected in the decisions that are made, and yet we're at part 2 of adopting the bill. I also just think about in our Bay of Plenty Rohe, we have many iwi, and where there is a suggestion to have one representative, that could be incredibly challenging, and I would be interested to see how some other areas made practically in a mana enhancing way so that it does not diminish the mana of each of the iwi, which has been a big piece of work for our Toimwana Bay of Plenty Rohe, how that might be done practically, because there are a number of rangatira that sit in their rightful spaces for their iwi, and while it might be well intended to have an iwi representative, the practicality of that, and while we live in our rohe and go back and engage with our iwi, can be a challenge. So any advice or views from across the country from a NEMA perspective of how that's being implemented in a mana enhancing way, I think would be well appreciated as I look around the room and all the different iwi of Doemwana. Any further, Director Crow?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may, I think it's certainly worth a reflection. It's quite unique in the Bay of Plenty in terms of the number of iwi we will need to address. For example, if I was to look at Canterbury Group or one of the South Island ones that primarily, most of them are looking at sort of one engagement, and everything else can funnel down from there. Ours is a little bit more complex. So I think we'll take some sort of unique design in terms of how we can achieve that in a manner enhancing way for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Crow. Just a question, please, Lily, Advisor Folds. We're having a look at this current submission process. Do you know the timeline, please, for submissions? In the hope that the second one might be picked up. Thank you.
Mihiana, the Chair, thank you through you. The Select Committee will determine the timeline in public submissions. The only thing I can say is the government intends to implement this bill this government term. So while I don't have the exact date when submissions will be open, what I can say is that the government is confident in terms of implementing this bill this term.
Great, thank you. We wish the Select Committee all the very best to be able to determine that timeline so that all regions around the country can participate in that process. Ms. Hapsel.
Thank you. Just a question through you, Madam Chair. Is it worthwhile, as well as the submission process, providing that feedback to the Select Committee or Minister that, at this point we haven't seen it, and just stressing the importance of it? Because I think that will be a lot more, we all get really big stacks of submissions, and I hope that it's not just an oversight that's being missed out. It's very important.
Committee members, if there's support for that, I most certainly know in my chamber that when people take the time to show up in the chamber in support of their written submission, that certainly gives it mana mea denia.
I think it could hurt, but also highlights not only do we have an unusual situation with, say, iwi, but we also with offshore islands, and I think we're probably the region most impacted by that. And so, if they're not going to listen to us on that one, that sort of thing wouldn't be lost amongst thousands of other submissions, I would suggest. So it's probably not bad to highlight it.
Completely agree. Thank you, Mea Denia. We do have some unique circumstances here in Doemwana that Advisor Folds don't appear to have been picked up around unique circumstances, and there is some concern that a submission, while we understand that that is the process of receiving feedback for the bill, with our unique circumstances, and dare I say we've just gone through the process of understanding and adopting our legal responsibilities as a joint committee group, that we'd like to see any submission from this group elevated in a way so that enhanced by an in-person speaking in support of submission, if that's possible. Anything further from me,
Sorry, just to be clear on the direction, sort maybe if it could be taken as an action point, and I just suggest that a brief letter summarising with an attachment of the full submission from the chair to them could just be helpful in the meantime. If he's happy with that.
Thank you, Mea Tapsell. Perhaps a suggestion to write a letter as the chair, signed by the chair on behalf of the group, to Minister Mitchell outlining these submission points. You're happy to move in that way, Mea Tapsell? I have a mover, Mea Tapsell, for that action point.
Second.
And a seconder in Mea Denia. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. Those against, there are none, and we look forward, Advisor Folds, when that timeline is also made available that we would lean very heavily on you and look forward to you advising us as soon as that's known.
Kia ora koutou.
Ngā mihi, thank you. And if you're happy, I'll also take receipt of that report from NEMA for the 12th of December. If you're happy to move in that way, Mayor Tapsell and Mayor Denia. All those in favour, please signal aye. Those against, the item is carried. Thank you. We move to agenda item 8.7, please. A verbal update from our Director of Emergency Management, Bay of Plenty, often referred to as MBOP. Director Crowe, we're in your hands.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First point with this verbal update is I'll highlight that next year we'd like to move this to a written update. The approach for doing it this way has been I can shape and adapt it even up to the sort of day before to make sure anything current or anything we give you is as current as can possibly be. However, I feel it can still be done by a written update with perhaps some supplementaries. It'll give you some insight as to the elements I'm going to talk to, and then if you feel there's anything missing, then are better prepared to ask questions around that. So acknowledging we'll shift that to a written update in the Joint Committee pack that goes out from first cycle next year. The items I can talk to here can be either strategic or perhaps a little bit more operational if we've been tracking them, which is where most of them fall to today. The first item is around vacancy management. We have several new appointments in the group office, which has filled out the structure that we've been holding for some time. The first one, Jono, Gracie, if you could just stand for a moment, please. You've met this morning, kindly open for us. And then the others are going to be in the headlights because they don't know I'm about to do this. So, Sam Dolan. Thank you, Sam. She's joined us as a summer assistant over the summer period through till February. Griffin Callahan. Morning, Griffin. Thank you. And Melanie Dole. Morning, Mel, who's joined us as an advisor in the operations team, and Ellie Taylor as an advisor in the risk and engagement team. Thank you. Hope that wasn't too awkward, team. An element on the alternate communication system. So it's a couple of pieces here. This is quite an operational one, but of value to know. NEMA has for many years supported what we call a BGAN. It's a little box. It's a broadband global area network device. So when you lose your comms, you can use this device to support your EOCs and so forth. Due to the evolution of Starlink, Kuiper and several other systems, the utilisation of this has been really, really low. And NEMA have indicated that they're stepping away from the service provision of that next year. To be honest, in terms of service delivery for us, it won't really have an impact. We tend to lean more on the Starlink systems and Kuiper systems now. That older technology is relatively inefficient anyway. So we're just making you aware that we'll need to just do some comms out to your council teams just to make sure they have the internal resilience to work through that. NEMA also being a Starlink reseller and able to provide that reseller service with some priority bandwidth has been a program, and I bring this up just for awareness, there has been a program rolling out to connect to that across the country. They're working through the pilot, I believe, still at the moment, although that pilot isn't completed. And the first couple of seeding groups will join onto that plan in the next year. That does include us at the moment, which we're comfortable with. We've got a reasonable service provision, and we'll probably let the others iron out the system and getting that changeover done. And then we'll connect in at a later time if, in fact, we deem that necessary. There's been some discussion in this forum around the mobile command unit, which was initially quite a sizable vehicle to be able to move around the region and provide service or support to EOCs, ECCs if all other infrastructure and architectures compromised. We've provided a probably simpler system than that, and that unit is now ready and commissioned. We have a training video available that goes with it, which is just a basic awareness of the end product. So I might have a chat to Rhonda and put that in with the minutes or another circulation shortly after, so you can get an idea of how that looks. I bring that to pass because it's been a standing order on our annual plan for a couple of 3 years, so that can now be closed off and was completed in terms of budget at about just over 10% of the budget allocated for it. So we came up with as technology moved forward, we were able to adapt and provide a different solution. The last one that I need to talk to this morning is around another contract we let recently. And perhaps if I'll take a bit of license, if I may, Madam Chair, just to give you some background to this. So we've engaged GNS, so I can't call GNS anymore, in Sciences New Zealand, to provide us with a product called a Tsunami Playbook. The purpose for that is, in the last 2 or 3 years, anytime there's been an earthquake, normally undersea, that has the potential to generate a tsunami, the analysis is done between GNS at the time, NEMA, and the Tsunami Experts Panel, all based in Wellington. What we found, and don't worry, Lily, I'm not targeting you specifically with this, so please don't feel challenged. What we found is the determination of risk took too long. The time we needed to warn our communities to potentially proceed evacuations exceeded the time it was taking to get a decision made. And from a group office perspective, that wasn't necessarily acceptable. Wasn't always the case, but we only need one of those to go terribly wrong, and we've got a pretty bad outcome. So we've commissioned this work that we can, basically the end product will be, we can drop a pin on a map, if you like, with a magnitude, and we can get an immediate risk assessment, which will really highlight for us those high risk, we must do something now type activities, and we'll get ourselves potentially 20, 30, 40 minutes back, and it'll fade out the ones at the bottom where we know we won't have to do anything. I expect there's still to be a grey area in the middle where we'll be hesitant to take action without further science, but it just puts us in a better position to make decisions and potentially respond. Happy to take any questions on any of those. Otherwise, that concludes my verbal update for the cycle. Thank you.
Deputy Chair Dougal.
Is there any change in reliability between the Starlink system and the system that you made redundant?
Through the Chair, and thank you for your question. No, they're both commercial providers, best intent, but no guarantee from the supplier, in this case Starlink, or under the resale arrangement, the change in liability is no different. It's best intention.
Anything further from committee members? One of the key aspects that I just pick up from Director Crow is the late identification of risk and the responsibility of keeping people safe, not trying to panic people. In the previous training, and Councillor Campbell will be well aware that there was a criticism of over-declaring, actually, in our area. We would never apologising for over-preparing and being overly cautious in the care of our people. There is perhaps testing the appetite of those who are in these positions, not fully understanding what's needed and necessary to have these conversations in communities where there may be a level of I'm fine, I've lived here for a long time, it's not going to happen. And if I cast my mind back to the very early stages of the previous training, that was tested and we had declarations made in both Opotiki and Whakatane. That took some work, and that's a lot of people for those communities to move. So that different level and layer of risk identification and confirmation, and the delay of that is absolutely a concern. Director Crow, anything else from committee members? If there is nothing further, please. We do have a recommendation to receive the verbal update from Director Crow, Emergency Management Bay of Plenty for December 2025. If I can invite a mover. I have a mover in Mayor Tansos and a seconder in Mayor Tapsell. All those in favour, please signal aye. There are none against, the item is carried, and welcome in Councillor Beef with the departure of Mayor Denia. We welcome you fully to participate. Thank you. We are at the public excluded section of our meeting. Team. The Joint Committee will now close the public section of the meeting and move into public excluded discussion. The specific grounds under section 48(1) of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act of 1987 for the passing of this resolution are, it's going to be a number of numbers, 48(1)A Roman numeral 1 section 7(2)G, where withholding the information is necessary to maintain legal professional privilege. Can I invite a mover to move into the public exclude? I have a mover in Mayor Moore and a seconder in Deputy Chair Dougal. All those in favour, please signal aye. Aye. There are none against, the item. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Caldwell. Thank you, team. Welcome back. At 11:26 a.m. we have the readmission of the public, which was moved by Mayor Moore, seconded by Councillor Beach, and welcome back. We're at agenda item number 12, which is the consideration of items not on the agenda, of which there are none, and we have come to the conclusion of our Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee meeting for the 12th of December 2025. Whānau, thank you for leaning in. Thank you for joining in. That is a lot of legality, delegation, responsibility work, lots of heavy lifting at the front end of this training. But we look forward to supporting our work, having our submission to our bill. Hopefully it's picked up a second time round. We're from the Bay of Plenty. We'll just keep going. But we have come to the conclusion of our meeting. And as we do with our koe, we will invite back our Jono Gracie. Jono Gracie, 4 weeks, you're doing a stunning job, Jono, to kia whakakapi tā tātou hui for closing karakia. We're in your hands, Jono, thank you.
Karakia whakamutanga. Ina hea, te pau, kia wātea. Ai ko rā wātea, tūturu whakmoa. Kia tina, umie.
Thank you. Our meeting is so close at 11:27 a.m. Kia ora tātou.